Welcome back to another podcast. I am your host, Carl E. from What Adventures, and we're back for a new kind of podcast this time. I'm changing it up a little bit. I'm not doing digital awareness or safety online at the moment. I am doing a lot of, let's say, motovlogging at the moment, and that's filling my space on YouTube. So depending on where you're watching this, there's going to be a lot more of these podcast series that are going to come out to do with everything to do with bikes. And the first guest that I've got on this show for, let's say, episode 1 of these bike podcasts is Jarryd from South Africa. So Jarryd is an athlete. He's won multiple championships, national and I guess international. National, okay. And he's also a tour guide and a riding coach over here in the UAE. So let's hear a little bit more about Jarryd. Jarryd, how you doing, man?
Yeah, good, thanks, and you, bro?
All good.
Thanks for having me. It's my first time on a podcast.
Is it really?
Yeah, first time.
Yeah?
New experience for me.
How does it feel?
Yeah, pretty cool. Reminds me of Joe Rogan.
Oh, yes, please. Yeah. He's a great inspiration.
I've done my fair share of watching, so it's nice to be on this side of the camera and the mic.
That's right, yeah. So having said that, we are actually recording this on camera as well. So for those that are watching this on YouTube, you can drop your comments in the comment box below. We love to engage with people. If you've got any ideas for topics that you want us to cover, or if you'd like to come on the show, or if you'd like to call in while we're actually recording the podcast, which we are doing at the moment, and we might have a couple of callers today. So we'll get to that a little bit later. So Jarryd, a little bit more about yourself, man. What you've been up to over in the UAE, and give us a bit of a background on you in South Africa.
Yeah, I came over to work as a tour guide, so I've been doing that for the past 8 months now. Things have changed now. I've moved, sort of stepped away from the tour guiding role with the company I was working for, and I was getting involved in a startup with a partner, and we're going to focus a little bit more on riding coaching, but from a sort of management point of view, like running my own business, which is a new adventure for me. It's to somewhat to a new degree, a new adventure. So we want to do rider coaching. We want to focus on supporting or cultivating competitive riders in the UAE. I come from a racing background, so that for me is passion. That's what I love to do. Like, I love to ride a bike anyway, but racing really floats my boat, and that's where that's my history. So I want to help cultivate young riders in the UAE and help put racing programs together for them, to help them prepare for racing and try to grow the sport a little bit.
You think UAE is a good place for it? I
do. I think. I mean, it's not a huge industry here, which means there's a lot of space for growth, I think. And the biggest thing about motorsport is that from the outside, it's quite a intimidating thing to get into if you don't have any information or support, or you don't know who to go to, who to trust. And I think there's also a lot of posers out there as far as experience goes. So
you think that's happening a lot over here? A lot of new people? New ones getting into the hobby?
Yeah. What as far as people offering services or riders themselves?
Riders.
Yes. I mean, I think that I have limited experience over here. I've only been here 8 months, but my time here has shown that there's a keen interest in it, and there's potential for it to grow into different disciplines. For example, Enduro versus typical desert riding, which is quite popular here, which is predominantly what most people do.
It's a big desert.
Big desert, lots of sand. So it's a great place, obviously, for desert riding and sand riding and desert adventure stuff. And there are a lot of companies that offer these kinds of experiences. But going beyond that, there's a lot of terrain to choose from in the UAE, from mountains to trails and wadis and riverbeds and really technical stuff. Likewise, some really cool motocross tracks. And the motocross scene, I mean, I've been to a few races, and I've met a lot of people involved, and it looks, as far as sporting investment goes, UAE has the potential to make it into something into something huge, right? Into something massive. But that means that there needs to be more awareness of it. There needs to be more interest in the sport. And that means getting new blood into it, like, and helping people get involved. And like I was saying, it's an intimidating thing to get involved in if you don't have any experience, especially if you're a parent and you've got kids and you want to get your child involved, or your child's seen something on TV, on YouTube or social media and wants to buy a bike. Like, where do you even start, right? And
good point.
And
everything used to be sold on a platform online called The Bizzle.
Yeah.
Kind of still is, but it's saturated with junk now.
Yeah.
And then other than that, it's just WhatsApp groups, which there are plenty of those.
Yeah, exactly. And over and above just buying the equipment, it's about, how do I go about doing this safely? Obviously I'm concerned about the welfare of my child, and how do I get him involved in, or her for that matter, doing this sport and not getting hurt, and doing it the right way, and not spending a stupid amount of money that's unnecessary, for example, and keeping it safe and being responsible about it.
Well, just don't stick him in a football club then and be done with it. Kick a football around a field for the rest of the day.
Yeah, but I mean, that's not cool.
The ongoing debate: footballers and motocross riders. Who's the hardest?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
There's no doubt about it in my mind. So I want to help create a open and information-friendly, welcoming environment to get people involved, provide good coaching and training, and help kids learn how to ride. And then for those that sort of start to progress and want to get better and get involved in the competition side, I want to help pave the way, right? I've ridden bikes for 25 years, and I've raced bikes for almost as long, right? Like, I started at the most junior amateur club racing fun day level, and then slowly it sort of grew and gained momentum, and obviously through my parents, my dad particularly, he sort of pushed it, and we went from club level to inter-club level to provincial level to inter-provincial level, and then finally to national level in South Africa, and then ultimately into a professional contract to ride and race for a manufacturer. And for me, that's the highest level. It is the highest level of the discipline that I do.
Is that back in South Africa?
That's back in South Africa, yeah.
All right.
And so I mean, I have a significant amount of experience in taking it from right down the bottom through to a competitive professional level. And I made so many mistakes growing up and doing this because I was young and I was a kid for most of it, and I didn't necessarily have all the guidance that I needed, and I didn't have someone with experience from within my family and my support group who had done this before, right? So we were just doing a trial and error, and that's the long way around, and we made a lot of mistakes and made it really difficult for ourselves a lot of the time, from a preparation point of view, and a fitness point of view, and a mental point of view. So when things start to become more competitive and get more serious, it is really important to have someone with experience to help you make the right decisions, to focus on the right things. And
how do you think that reflects on over here now, like in the UAE? I mean, it's still, everything's still pretty fresh, pretty new, and a lot to learn. But with the participation of, experts, pros like yourself coming from other countries here and then sharing that wealth of knowledge, how do you think that's, from what you've seen in your 8 months, how do you think that is panning out here?
Well, I haven't been able to really pursue it as yet, right? So my coaching in the UAE has predominantly been sort of amateur beginner riders, which I enjoy doing. I love to share, but I want to get involved in the racing side and with the competitive guys. But at this point, I'm in a market where there is some really competitive riders and people who are pursuing it in a serious way. For example, I spoke to a youngster in the week on Monday afternoon who told me that he wanted to travel to South Africa to run race the South African national rounds at the end of the year, because the motocross scene in South Africa has a deeper field. There's more fast riders, and it's a little bit of a bigger scene and more sort of serious athletes. So he wants to go over there to get the experience, to see what it's about, and then for me that's an indication of what some of the young kids or young guys who are riding locally are aspiring to, right? So they want to progress, they want to see where the next level is, they want to get better, and if it means traveling to another country to do so, then maybe we should be doing a little bit more locally to raise the level and raise the awareness of what it takes to be at the top and help provide that sort of structure and the information to help make that happen,
So what are you doing now? What's your current mission here in the UAE to achieve all of what you've just said, or to bring that awareness here?
Well, I've started a business called Cobi Motorsports, and the foundation of the business is teaching and coaching. That's
what levels?
From learn to ride through to competitive level.
Nice.
And that is very closely tied to a sister business, which my partner owns, which is a gym and functional fitness facility, both martial arts and functional fitness. And for me, that's just the best combination because, I have access to a facility to train both for myself and any of my clients, as well as some really good expertise as far as fitness training and functional fitness goes. There's some serious professionals within the business. And that means that I can not only offer coaching and training services, but then athletic and physical training aspects too. So my business is our business, myself and my partner. We're going to be quite involved in teaching and then to bring in the physical side, right? So the two hand in hand. And then over and above that, we want to run a workshop and support guys through maintenance of bikes and race preparation and then
important stuff. That's very important stuff.
100%. I mean, particularly if you're being, or in any case, it's important. But if you're being competitive, like you got to trust your machinery, and another important aspect that goes hand in hand with the workshop would be suspension setup and preparing the setup of the bikes for the terrain, for the track, for the rider, for the level of rider. That's also obviously an important element that needs to be tied into the puzzle of being a successful rider or racer for that matter. Down the line we'd like to have that set up. It's all work in progress at this point, but that's the vision. The vision is to have a setup that caters to the beginner who wants to learn to ride through to the guy who's fighting for a championship at the end of the year.
You think there's a market for that over here, for the championships? Do people come in from other countries to train here? I know there are some, like for the Dakar, they come and train in this environment because the Dakar environment is very similar to that, especially being in Saudi most recently. How does that reflect across your training? What's your target market?
Well, the local market for sure. Anyone who's at any of the motocross tracks and is at the race day on the weekend is someone that I would be targeting. Whether, like I said, whether you're a beginner and you're just doing it socially, or you're trying to win races and win championships. And I think that it's like your question was how big is the market? I don't think it's massive. I don't think it's huge, but my mission is to grow that market.
Yeah.
So the mission is not purely to take advantage of an existing market. It's the mission is to grow the industry in the sport, which is going to benefit all the sort of accompanying businesses who are involved and cultivate. The vision is growth and progress for the sport as a whole, through what I'm doing. It's providing information, it's teaching, it's getting people interested and involved, and also bridging the gap between not knowing a single thing and then choosing not to even attempt it, to having some solid information, somebody to trust, and being able to make informed choices, and then take a step towards pursuing a new sport or getting your kid involved in a new sport.
Well, good on you, man. I mean, it definitely needs it. In the 14, almost 15 years of me being here and riding the desert environment like the whole time, I've seen it go up and down with people, wanting to get into the sport. How do they get into it? Eventually they find ways, because when you become part of a community or you start asking questions, who's riding, and then it's very easy to slip into the small, tight-knit community that there is, and there are pockets of it. And the way that I usually tell that is by the WhatsApp groups. I'm on so many of these WhatsApp groups now. It is kind of annoying when all the messages come through, especially those that spam the WhatsApp groups with selling their family's car, or you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And I look at that and see that that's a growth in the community on how many there are and how many people are in those groups. Some of them have like plus 200, I think, if that's the limit that you're allowed, but there are definitely up to 200 in most of the groups I'm in. And there's a lot of new riders and a lot of new faces that I've never seen before, and riding out in the community with them, it's very like they're good riders, so you can't tell whether they've just started or not. I don't know what their experience is or background in where they come from, but they seem to ride the desert pretty well. So I'm like, well, did I never see you before? And the community is there, and the potential is definitely there. There's a lot more bikes I'm seeing out in the desert. But let's dive a little bit deeper into the different environments. Let's talk about the cool shit. The desert is the desert, and if you've been riding it as long as I have, it's it's just sand and dunes and some camels, and then you see that every weekend. So it does get the same after a while.
It becomes a little monotonous after a while.
It does, yeah. And I'm like, I want to change the scenery, and enduro is close to my heart, so now I've just dropped the bomb. So let's talk enduro. Do you think that, from what you've experienced so far being here in an enduro environment in the mountains, is there potential there? Tell me a little bit about your experience in riding out there, and where is the future for that kind of part of riding bikes?
Absolutely. I think that the enduro potential is huge. I've done some exploring in Jaco Mountains, both with you and another group of people, and I think it's awesome. Like, I'll give you a little bit of background to my enduro experience. When I signed my professional contract with KTM in 2015, I had never raced any enduro seriously or consistently. I've done a few odd events here and there and done a bit of riding here and there, but I grew up in an area which didn't have enduro terrain, and therefore didn't have any enduro competition or enduro community or enduro riding. So I grew up riding cross country, off-road, which is generally a lot faster. And we also grew up in a pretty sandy area. So I mean, that's where I cut my teeth in sand riding. And when I signed the contract with KTM, it was initially to ride cross-country nationals in South Africa.
For KTM?
For KTM.
Nice.
And what I wanted to do was to become a well-rounded rider and learn about enduro and get involved in enduro. So I said to them, look, I want to compete on the enduro side too. And would it be possible for them to support me in doing so? So they were like, yeah, 100%. We can't supply you with a bike dedicated for that, but you can use your practice cross-country bike and race enduro. And that was a huge learning curve for me, because I rode XCF model KTMs in the cross-country series, which is sort of an intermediary between enduro and motocross, but certainly more motocross, right? It's a motocross frame, it's a motocross engine and head, motocross clutch, flywheel. The only difference being is some ratios in the gearbox, the 18-inch rear wheel and a bigger tank and a side stand. So it's a motocross bike that's essentially geared for riding cross country. which is a great machine. I mean, I love those things, and it would be a really good machine for desert riding out here. But nevertheless, I raced this practice bike in the National Enduro Series, and man, was it a nightmare. Like, South African Enduro at a national level tends towards the extreme side, right? So it's really tech. Some races we're doing like an average of under 20 k's an hour for like 6 hours. So I really suffered. I mean, I didn't have the experience or, you know, time in the saddle, riding the terrain, or the right bike for that matter. And then, you know, again, didn't have the right information, right? Like, I hadn't the experience on tire choice, and thankfully the team supplied tires that were correct. But your mousses, how hard your mousse needs to be for optimum traction in slippery conditions, and suspension setup, these things. So having the wrong bike, not having the right suspension, not having the right preparation, I just suffered. It was really, really difficult for me. And towards the end of the year, once we finished the National Cross Country Series and the Enduro Series, it was the end of the year, and then I had the opportunity to compete in the Roof of Africa, which is one of the biggest extreme enduro events in South Africa, and it's also been part of the Red Bull World Extreme Series. And it's also considered the mother of hard enduro. It's one of the original hard enduros that were ever staged. And it's super tech, super difficult event, big scene, big scale. And I rode a 300 enduro specific machine, and it makes your life 10 times easier. And I managed to finish in the silver class, which is the second tier class. And it's safe to say it was two of the toughest days on a bike in my life. So that was my introductory year to riding enduro.
Do you think we can get some kind of riding like that out here in the mountains?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, maybe not on the same scale. The mountains in Lesotho, where that race is staged, the scale is bigger than here. I haven't explored all of the mountains in the UAE, not by a long shot. So I'm sure that there is some really tech stuff. And just last weekend, I did some pretty cool technical stuff and did some big steps and a couple of really cool climbs. The potential is there. I mean, you can find super extreme stuff to really test anyone, and more sort of trails and more gentle riding stuff.
Don't forget the waddies.
And the waddies,
And anyone that doesn't really know what a waddy is, well, get to Dubai, you'll soon know what one is. Yeah. It's a riverway. And I haven't yet seen any water in one of these waddies.
It's a riverbed.
It's a riverbed, dried up, right? Yeah. So there's no water there, but I've been told that when the rainy season, whenever that does happen, once in 20 years, you can have flash floods coming through these things. And there are telltale signs of these flash floods where you can see boulders that have been moved and rounded off rocks and pebbles and that kind of stuff. So it definitely goes through there. So the waddies are good fun. The waddies then lead off into other multiple little trails.
Gullies and things.
Gullies and little cutouts and all these other kind of stuff, which we've experienced so far. I'm going to get straight to the point here. I want to push the enduro scene. It is a very small community. Not many people know about it, but the conversion is already starting to happen. I've already started seeing people that have had MX bikes that they ride for the desert, which is a whole nother topic we can touch on, but that's a whole nother podcast talking about which is the right bike for riding in the desert and so on. I started off on an MX bike just because Dave did and Mike did and everyone else did. But since I bought an enduro bike, I don't know why I didn't buy that since the very beginning. So the conversion is happening. I'm seeing people now cancelling the orders for their MX bikes and getting an enduro. Why not have the best of both worlds if it's set up right? So the terrain is good. So here's the question: is desert or enduro in the mountains? Which is your favorite? And we'll bring in a caller as well. One of our friends in the community, Jaco. He's a good rider. He rides in the desert. I'm still yet to convert him to enduro, and we'll see what he has to say. But while I'm setting that up, tell me, what is your favorite from being here? Because you've tried both, and why?
I couldn't choose. I mean, from early on, I knew I wanted to be a well-rounded rider and be at least pretty good at everything. So I've spent a lot of time on motocross tracks. Now, since being here, a lot of time in the desert, but I had plenty sand riding experience in the past. I would consider myself a sand rider originally. Cross country, enduro, motocross, a little bit of everything, and I like them all. And in a perfect world, I'd have a bike dedicated for each discipline.
And so you'd have 2 bikes or 3.
3, yeah. In a perfect world, 3 bikes, right? And no, I need a 4th because I need a rally bike too. You know, that's a discipline I haven't actually pursued. There's obviously a lot of parallels between cross country and rally, but it's the bike that's different, and obviously the navigation, which is something I've never done. It's on my to-do list of my goals. I would like to get involved in a bit of rally. But the thing for me is that the setup and the application or the bike is so different between all of them. Like if you had to use one bike for a little bit of everything, I would get an enduro machine.
Yes, sir.
I would get something like probably a 350 EXCF. And then I would do a cartridge conversion in the forks or just run the factory forks. I have a set of factory forks. And then set it up in a way that you've got a little bit of range to work with to adjust for everything. But this is not a perfect situation because I'm pretty competitive in motocross, more intend to be this year. We're going to be racing this year. So I wouldn't be able to do that and hope to be competitive on an enduro machine. So I love to be quick on a motocross track, and that means setting it up, right? But there's levels within levels. For me, I've been riding motocross for years and racing a bit of motocross for years and practicing a lot of motocross. So I consider myself a pretty good motocross rider. And what I demand from a bike and suspension for motocross is very different from someone who just wants to enjoy a little bit of everything. So my needs are going to be different from Joe on the street, who just wants a bike that can do everything. For him, an enduro machine with a bit of suspension setup to personalize for him would be fine to ride in the desert.
So you're saying enduro bike should be the one to start with in these environments that we've got, desert, mountains.
100%.
Right.
You could ride everything with an enduro machine and be super comfy and super happy. I mean, all you need to do is go watch some of the world enduro riders and see what they do on jumps and on motocross tracks with enduro bikes. You'd be blown away. So they're more than capable of doing a little bit of everything. And so you can climb rocks on one weekend, you can smash the desert the next weekend, and then you can go enjoy the track with your mates on another weekend.
It's an all-rounder bike.
It's an all-rounder. So for me, it's a no-brainer as far as if you're going to buy a bike to do a little bit of everything and be versatile, it would be an enduro machine. There's no two ways about it.
I like the sound of that. I agree 100%. Now that I've actually bought one and made that switch, I ride it in the desert also. But you know what? That's just my opinion. Let's bring Jaco on. Let's surprise him. I've warned him already that we're going to give him a call. Let's see what he has to say. We're going to ask him the question.
It'll be interesting.
Can we hear him? See if he answers. What do you reckon he's going to say? Desert or mountains?
Desert. It's the culture.
Hey, morning, bud.
What's up, Jaco?
I'm good, and you, buddy?
All good, mate. We are recording you live on a podcast. Just to let you know, Jarryd is here with me as well. Jarryd, can you hear him?
Hey, man, how's it going?
I'm good, and you, Jarryd? Good morning. How's things going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Is it too early for you?
Huh?
Is it too early for you?
It's 10:30, mate. I've been awake since very early this morning.
Good stuff, man. Oh, dude, I've got a question for you. Jarryd and I have just been talking about the different terrains out here, desert, mountains, MX track, all that sort of stuff, all the good stuff. And what bike, if you only could have one bike, what would that one bike be? So first of all, I'll ask you a question. Desert or mountains? Which one do you choose?
Well, coming from South Africa, where, most of the terrain is like, mountainous and single track, it's like coming to the desert and you have the freedom to go wherever you want and the jumps and yeah, man, I love the desert. So I like the fast desert rides, the the slow technical ride is like, it's, I don't really enjoy that much.
All right, so having said that, I mean, the desert is cool. I love the desert. I'm the same, man. I love going on those fast rides. You can send it like it's cross country or rally,
Absolutely.
that kind of thing. But being in the mountains and having a taste of that. You've been through the mountains before, Jaco, like some of the wadi trails, the gravel trails and stuff. Have you been through any of the technical stuff yet?
Yeah, I mean, I've been through a few wadis a couple of times, but literally only a couple of times. Well, the times when we go on our rides to Rack, that's sort of like wadi rides, but like the super technical stuff. No, I'm not really into that. Mainly because my bike is not really set up for the wadis, because obviously the suspension needs to be set up properly. And my suspension is set up properly for the desert, so I don't really like to mess around with the suspension. So that's mainly why I stick to desert riding.
Well, what is your
bike?
And
also,
tell everyone what your bike is.
It's motocross, so it's a 450 SXF.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So going through wadi trails and technical stuff, that would certainly pop an engine or two.
It would be a
Yeah, and I also like to add, when you come off in the desert, in the sand, it's much softer than
that's a good point.
Bashing your elbows and your knees and your elbows on
the trade-off is that you're
rocks.
going at a higher speed in the desert, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you got your soft sand, but it could be less forgiving at higher speeds.
Yeah,
but I mean, we've all fallen off.
Soft sand is not so soft at like 110.
Yeah, right. Especially when you hit a ditch.
Yeah, okay, but Jarryd, I don't go at your speed, like
Modest. That's modesty right there. You do go fast, Jaco. Fast enough to throw a leg off or an arm off or something like that, at least. We are going some fast speeds in the desert, right?
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
no, we do. But I mean, the times that I've come off, it was soft enough at least. But I've ridden in Bali as well, where it's super technical. And you've got trees all around you, and you've got rocks, and it's very there's just a lot more obstacles when you're in a technical riding environment. More to look out for. So I just enjoy the more faster rides on the desert. So freedom to go wherever you want. You don't have to really like watch out for a tree or a rock or that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Or climb up a bloody great hill.
Exactly. Or climb over like slimy logs.
Yeah.
And also, while we're on the subject about the bikes, is also that my 450 is the SXF models. They don't come with a radiator fan, so if you do slow technical rides in the UAE, they boil over quite quickly. So they're meant for get on and ride, not really like slow technical rides. So the EXCs, as you know, they come with a radiator fan, so it helps a lot with the cooling.
For sure.
Well, we've just talked about that and the fact that I've made the switch and gone for an enduro bike and wished that that's how I'd started off in the beginning. What do you think to that, Jaco? Like, would you stick with your MX bike for the desert and stick to the desert only with some mountain trails, or would you consider
that's a very interesting question. The thing is, like, the UAE offers like desert riding and it offers mountainous terrain. So in Europe you get like mostly mountainous terrains, and like in UAE you get desert and mountainous terrains. I obviously prefer the desert, but there might be some guys that from Europe they're used to single track technical riding, and then they'll opt for that sort of riding. But it's good to have a choice between different types of terrain, but then also you need to have the right setup on your bike. If you like to tinker a lot with the different settings on your bike to get it accustomed for the terrain you're having, then it's fine, but then you need to have the right bike for it. An enduro bike can be easily modified. The suspension settings can be easily modified to suit both terrains. But then again, it also comes with, I think, it has an 18-inch tire at the back, and you have the front and rear lights. So I guess if you're doing that sort of technical riding and enduro style riding, then enduro bike is for you. But if you're more into like track riding and desert riding, Then a motocross bike is MX bike.
So
actually, for desert riding, enduro bike is also really good. You just have to tweak the suspension a little bit. But I mean, an EXC is perfect for the desert because it has like long gear ranges
and good torque
and good torque as well. Yeah. So the suspension is a little bit on the softer side, but that can be easily like with a few, just tune the clickers a little bit, and then you sort it.
Revalve it.
For sure.
And I see the dealers are also, lately you would see the manufacturers or the dealers around here, they would only be like motocross focused. You would not see an enduro bike, on the floor, on the showroom floor. But I see KTM has like actually stepped it up now. I was in there like last week, and spoken to the guys there, and they said that they're bringing in more EXC models.
For sure.
That's good to hear.
They just brought in the new 6 days edition. They're going to start bringing in 2-strokes as well. So like really expanding, their model range and offering for the off-road riders here.
So what does that tell you, Jarryd?
That tells me that the times are changing and they're adapting with the times. But I must say that I'm quite close with the guys at KTM, and I've been chatting to them since late last year about enduro and about cultivating the market. So maybe they sort of seeing the same vision about that we're seeing. Well, obviously they are.
If they're keeping up with the community in real time.
Yeah. So this is a conversation that I've had with them before, and it goes hand. I think what they're doing is goes hand in hand with what we're trying to do, which is to grow that side of the community and provide the necessary equipment to give people the option to do something different.
The option, exactly. Even if you don't want to go and do the mountains, you can still use that same bike like I do in the desert.
Absolutely. And frankly, the enduro bike is a much more forgiving, easier bike to ride than a motocross bike. And for the average rider out there, 90% of the guys that I've seen riding in the UAE would be more comfortable and enjoy their riding significantly more on an enduro bike.
There you go, guys. You've heard it from the best. It's the direction it's going to go in. I mean, why not? If you're going to consider the one bike that you're going to have in your garage, and you're going to ride it in the desert, have the best of both worlds, and go for an enduro. So, Jaco, if you were getting a new bike, if that was time coming up soon, would you consider an enduro over an MX, or would you stick with your MX?
I would stick with the MX. I don't really have it all depends on what you need from your bike and the terrain that you're riding, right? So I like the fast, short gear ratios of an MX bike. And I've just always ridden an MX bike, so that's what I'm used to. But I mean, like Jarryd said, like you need to have like a good variety of bikes on offer. So for example, if you go to Bali, for example, there are different types of terrain, and they also have different bikes to choose from. So if you want an MX bike and you want to hit the track, sure, they've got it. If you want a EXC enduro style bike, then sure, they've got that as well. And it's good that the dealers are actually going along with this, because Dubai is a tourist destination, and you need to have different types of bikes on offer for your clients. I've also, and you've probably noticed, our backyard is getting actually small. The desert is getting smaller. I mean, with all the construction going on,
and the truth.
And we're gonna have to expand to other areas to ride as well.
Yeah.
So let's move into the mountains then. There it is.
Done deal.
Well, yeah, maybe I'll just move deeper into the desert, but
yeah, you can bring your MX bike on some of our rides. I'm not guaranteeing you'll go back out on the bike. Maybe we'll put it out on a truck or a trailer.
Man, I just replaced the new radiator, so I'm not looking forward to doing that again soon.
Why is that then? You're going too fast?
Yeah, too fast on the ramp in the truck.
Yeah, I'd love to cut away to that CCTV footage we have of you doing that. That was quite funny. But
no.
That was a tough ride.
You will delete that video immediately.
All fun and games.
It's quite embarrassing. It's the first time ever it happened.
Well, you stick on your MX bike, man. I mean, the desert's still going to be a big enough playground for these kind of things, and the dealerships, well, I think they're going to still have a mixture, but as we're talking about now, growing into the enduro scene. So, Jaco, man, thanks for coming on the show. I'll give you a chat later on and speak to you later, dude.
Cheers, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah,
Cheers,
no worries,
Jarryd.
man. Ciao.
Take care.
Ciao,
Bye-bye.
All good. Yeah. So what do you think of that, Jarryd?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised at his response. That's his discipline and what he enjoys, and it's what he's used to. And people don't like to change, right? Like once they're used to something and they're familiar with it, they know what to expect. It's they're not likely to change.
He's got a good point. He's got a very good point of like wanting to ride. I mean, because this slipped my mind. I was so like, oh, enduro, yeah, it's so much fun. It's close to my heart. It's a change.
Yeah.
But then what Jaco just brought up then is riding in the desert and going fast. You get that sense of cross country or rally, but you can't get that in the mountains.
No.
Technical stuff.
But you can certainly get that in the desert with an enduro bike.
There you go. Yeah. Now we're back to that again.
There's no doubt about it, right? I mean, all you need to do is watch Toby Price doing the Fink in Australia on a 500 EXCF.
Yeah.
And tell me that he's not the fastest person in the world on an enduro machine going through the desert, right?
Didn't he do that once, doing it on a bike and then doing the exact same race
On the truck.
on the truck? That's
yeah.
insane.
Yeah. I mean, that's just an example. And that's what's possible with enduro machines. There's nothing like you can get the same rush and thrill. Like how brave are you with your wrist is all that really counts at the end of the day.
Wrist or risk?
Wrist.
The things attached to your arms.
You got to, how far are you going to twist it? And how long are you going to hold it, right?
Yeah.
So, like, for me, when I ride in the desert, I want to hit big jumps and big sands. And so for me, the motocross bike works well. I have been riding a motocross bike with stock suspension. I put 11.5 bars of pressure in the forks, crank up the compression. I run, obviously you need the support if you're going to take big hits, and that is an awesome toy to play with in the desert. But that's more specific, right? Not everyone's trying to hit the biggest jumps that they can. Most people are just riding like a sort of cross-country desert style.
Cruise,
right? And
playing it safe. They should.
And for that application, the enduro machine would be perfect. And like I said before, I think if you're an intermediate or a beginner, an enduro bike is an easier bike to learn to ride. It's an easier bike to handle. It's more comfortable. It's got a bigger tank. It's got an 18-inch rear wheel, which is more comfortable. The suspension is more geared for comfort and a variety of terrains, where your standard motocross bike for any high-speed stuff in the desert is really nervous because the suspension is pretty stiff. Yeah. So there's trade-offs.
Even for a seasoned rider like me, I've been riding in the desert for 14 years. And an MX bike, for when you want to hit the jumps and you want to hit those big dunes, there's the big risk involved in it, and it's all on you if something goes pear-shaped. But the only con that I've found with an EXC is the suspension itself. And I was warned about this prior to buying the enduro bike, because I do like to hit some big jumps, even though I'm not the best, but I do like to get some good air when I can, when I'm feeling ballsy. And I've done that a few times without thinking on the bike. I've been pre-warned. The suspension is softer. It's progressive. You could break your ankles if you send it. And there has been a few hairy moments where my heels have dug into the sand, and it's made me think, geez, it's definitely an impact that is waiting to happen on my bones. And not only the takeoff on the launch, but the landing. If you don't get that back wheel down and then the front wheel, if you're coming down on both, or God forbid the front wheel, then you're just going to load up the suspension fully and it's all going to go wrong. And that's happened once to me already.
Well, I'm gonna correct you there, because if you want the softest, well, it all depends on the nature of the landing, right? If you're landing flat, if you land front first, you're going to ride out smoother.
Okay.
But
that sounds like the opposite to me.
But it also depends, right?
Yeah.
If both wheels together is the most efficient way to soak up the impact. But if you land rear first, like if you're doing a big send to flat and you land rear first, it's going to slap
Right.
And it slaps the front down, which makes the whole experience a lot more aggressive and the impact a lot higher. For example, I watched Jeffrey Hurlings riding around DMX towards the end of last year. And he was, those jumps are small in comparison to what MXGP and World Championship guys do, but he was hitting everything and basically flat landing them. And he would land front first on flat hard pack with huge forward momentum, so over jumping, and then land just front first and then rear. And it was something that I noticed, because if I went long on any of those jumps, I would tend to land sort of a little rear first in an attempt to soften it. And then what would happen, it would be rear would land and then the front would slap down and would be big impact on my wrists. And then I tried to do the opposite, which was after seeing what he was doing, and it really makes the impact more progressive, and the front rolls out of it and the rear lands, momentarily, like a fraction of a second later. I'm not talking about landing in an endo position, but just landing a little front end heavy. The bike rides out of it a lot better. So it depends on how you're landing.
How high you're jumping.
What it looks like,
how big are your balls.
Exactly. And another example is I watched Hunter Lawrence in one of the AMA Outdoor Nationals last year. No, it wasn't an Outdoor National. It was one of the Supercross rounds, and they were in practice. And there was a big triple leading into a corner, and there was a table landing at the end, just before the corner, and a lot of guys were coming, or him included, were coming short. So they were seat bouncing, trying to get across this triple, and were landing on the flat surface of this table landing just before the landing itself. And a guy just prior had landed front first because he was going to be short and rode out of it, no problem. And Hunter came down and landed rear first, and that same slapping action rips the handlebars out of his hands.
Right.
So the impact of landing rear first, if you're going to land flat or if you're going long, rear first is going to be a lot more aggressive. So it just shows you that, a different
I guess that's
approach.
just one of my ways that I thought would soften the blow if I was going to hit one of these jumps, the same as what I would do if I was on an MX bike and the way that's set up. But I'll try, from what you've said now, is go for the front more, or balance both of them, or just in general think wiser. Don't hit such big jumps if you're on an enduro bike, because the suspension is softer, unless you go for different valves or tweak the suspension or that kind of thing. But in a way, it's kind of toned me down a bit, which has toned down the risk as well, which means I don't have to go home to the wife at the end of the day and say, take me to hospital, because I effed myself up, which she's happy about too. And also me, because it means I can get back on the bike the following week. Yeah. So it's a win-win. So it kind of will tone you down. You know what? Before we're going to wrap up the show, because we've got 10 and 15 minutes left, let's try and bring Tim on.
Yeah, let's
Tim is one of the best mechanics here in the UAE. He's not been here long either, similar to you.
You got to make sure you mention he's a German mechanic.
Oh, he's German mechanic, certified by KTM. Am I right? Or he used to do it for KTM?
Yeah. He worked for a KTM dealership in Germany, and that's where he got his certification, I believe. So
that's right. Let's see if he'll answer the phone. We'll ask him the same question, because he's just cut the call. Would you believe
try
that?
again.
We'll try him again.
He might call back. It tends to happen with his line a lot.
Okay. Yeah. We'll ask him the same question as well. Is he a desert rider through and through?
He's a Tupperware rider.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yo, what's up, Tim? You're on a podcast. Jarrod's here with me. How you doing, man?
What's up, G?
Man, so far so good. How's it?
Yeah, good. You busy today, eh?
Always.
Fixing them bikes.
Yeah, fixing broken bikes, eh?
Yeah, tell me about it. You done mine yet?
Yeah, it's all done, mate. Ready to go.
Oh, I can ride tomorrow. Yeah, hey, we. Anyways, dude, me and Jarryd have just been on the conversation talking about desert or mountains, enduro or MX bikes. Which is the best bike to be set up here? Now, I know you have an MX bike.
Yeah.
What would you choose, desert or mountains?
To be honest, I'd prefer an enduro bike with motocross setup, like suspension setup, obviously. But it's hard to say. Like I prefer both, like mountains and dunes. But I think if I choose, I take dunes first.
Why is that?
It's just the nice flow of riding. Like you're surfing through the sand and all that. It's just so much flow in it. Mountains is something more challenging for your brain, I'd say, which is also kind of cool as well.
And challenging for your body too, in
Yeah,
a different way.
And your bike.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like when it comes to mountains, obviously there's a lot more damage to your bike than if you drop it in the sand,
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good point to consider. Actually, you got to put more protection on your bike and your body, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, body as well. That's why I prefer when I go enduro riding, it's obviously in the forest in Europe somewhere, because that's also not too harsh on yourself than when you're riding in rocks.
So is it fair to say you're saying desert, and mainly because you can just open it up wider, there's more places to go?
I don't know. It's just the flow of riding that I enjoy that much,
Surfing the dunes, right? Okay.
Yeah,
That's
it's just the whole surfing thing. I like enduro riding a lot as well, but it's like it depends on what kind of mood I'm in. But for desert ride, I'm always up.
Yeah, it's a good point. I feel you there, yeah, because you get into that flow state, you can go through the dunes, almost feel like you're surfing them, and you come out of it feeling a boss. But then when you go into the mountains, you come out of it either which way like an amateur.
You have to be prepared. Like for sand, you can be super tired and just take it easy, or you can go and push and ride as crazy as you can. But once you go enduro riding, you have to be fit. If you're tired, you're gonna mess up real bad.
Yeah, or you're gonna stay there.
Yeah, just cheers guys, I'm a camp out.
Get a helicopter, it's on his way.
But you made an interesting point, Tim, about riding an enduro bike with a more aggressive, harder setup, even though you're riding in the dunes.
Yeah.
And that's something that we've been talking about, and I lean the same way. If you're gonna buy something to ride a little bit of everything, I reckon an enduro machine is probably the way to go.
What do you reckon, Tim?
Yeah. I think that as well. To be honest, like the fair point why I got an MX bike is because it's cheaper. You save, say, 12,000 dirhams just by buying a motocross bike compared to an enduro bike because of the whole homologation. Well, I don't know. Like I paid like 7,500 euros, and like an enduro bike is 10 to 11,000. So we're about somewhere 12 to 16,000 bucks.
That's a big dirhams.
Yeah, but I mean, you got the whole road registration and all that stuff in it.
That's
Plus,
another good point. You can register the EXE.
Yeah.
I mean, in this country, as far as I know, you can register these MX bikes as a, what do you call it, an entertainment bike.
Whatever that means.
But, yeah, so it is sort of registered and insured, whatever.
On the back wheel, going down Shakeside Road.
Yeah,
that kind of entertainment.
Exactly, no worries. But like, obviously, in other countries, Europe or something, an MX bike is not, like, you cannot insure it. Like, not possible.
Yeah, same in South Africa.
Yeah. I mean, it's just asking for trouble. You take an MX bike and register it on the road. What are you going to do? Ride it like an MX bike.
Supermoto.
But it also gets to a point of, let's say, insured for theft and all that stuff. You have a road registered bike, you have insurance against theft as well. Your motocross bike, if it's gone, it's gone. Like stuff like that.
So it's safe to say it's better to register an enduro bike and have that on the road than it would be an MX.
Yeah. I mean, in general, I would preferably next time I'd get myself an enduro bike, and like if it's a KTM, obviously put the motocross shock in motocross swing arm and the motocross forks in, and that would be an ultimate desert weapon because you have
just for the record, can you repeat that your next bike would probably be an enduro bike, but you'd tune it up?
Yeah, I would get an enduro bike and tune the shit out of it.
Yeah, but that's some drastic measures to change the swing arm.
I mean, it depends. Like, if I were to buy an EXE, then I can just swap out the swing arm, and then I could put the exact shock in with linkage. But if you were to buy a Husky, you already have that.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Just swap out the shock. But you know me, I don't like normal. I have to be a bit extra.
Well, we do know you. You're a mechanic. You can just do this kind of stuff. Easy. Stick it in your garage. Work on it whenever you like, because you've got the skills to do it and the tools. So you can tune up, which is a good point, because if you do have that knowledge, which quite a few people I know do actually have that, they're not professional mechanics, but they are mechanics for their own gear, and they tweak up and tune up their own bike. So it looks like it's going in the direction that the enduro bike, not just your opinion, Jarryd, or mine, just because I'm excited for enduro, but Tim is saying the same as well, and Jaco did say the same, even though he preferred desert, but an enduro bike is the best all-rounder, not just for starting off, but for all the terrains that we have.
For sure.
Best of both worlds. Well, Tim, man, thanks for coming on. I'd like to have you on the podcast in person another time, but if not on call, because I know you're busy in the garage fixing my bike.
No, sure, anytime. I'm always down for an invite.
Sweet, dude. Right.
Shot, Tim.
Ciao.
All right, have a good day, guys. See you
too.
soon.
Ciao.
Ciao, dude.
Well, there you have it.
From the horse's mouth.
I think these dealerships, need to keep pushing out and ordering more of these enduro bikes, especially. I mean, we're creating awareness around it. That's one of the main reasons, Jarryd, I wanted to get you on the show today to talk about this kind of stuff. You're going in that direction as it is anyway, business-wise, coaching-wise, personal interests. There are going to be many more times that you and I are out in the mountains riding together with the small but growing community that we've got. There's another WhatsApp group for it, by the way. And that's growing slightly. So I think there's going to be a huge shift where people are buying these enduro bikes, and the dealerships are going to need to keep up with it.
Well, likewise with what I intend to do with the racing and the motocross, providing good information, helping people make the transition, and supporting people in their pursuit of whatever they want to do. It's the same thing I want to do with enduro is provide people with good information, assistance in riding, in the coaching, in the training side, and assistance in purchasing the correct machine. Like we've been talking about, in my opinion, the correct machine for a little bit of everything is an enduro bike for the majority of people out there, and then joining us for rides and coming and experiencing the mountains and seeing what's possible. There's so much out there. It's so sick to ride, and it's just waiting for us to go and do it.
Yeah, man, there's so much potential there, talking out of experience. The next season is coming up because it is very, very hot now, so it's kind of swaying my decision to not go out and ride in the mountains. The desert, because I don't know, you can go out, you can come back within 2 hours, if that window, before it becomes very dangerous and hot. So coming up into the winter season, we're going to talk about this a lot more, the transition over into enduro and building that community there. I mean, you guys that are listening, if you're thinking about it, you're on the fence, or even if you're not, and this conversation we're having now is making you think about enduro, come and give it a try. Hit up Jarryd. We'll put some links to, how can people get hold of you?
Instagram. You can hit me up on my personal account. Likewise on Cobi Motorsports Instagram account. You can follow what we're doing.
Cobi, C-O-B-I.
C-O-B-I _ motorsport.
There it is.
And see what we're up to, see what we're getting involved in, and you can drop me a DM, and we can get in contact over WhatsApp or email, and we can.
Sweet, and then we'll point them in your direction because you'll be the man to train them up, 100%. Point them in the right direction with the right machine, and also join our community rides that we're developing, which is going to be in full swing next season. We're both going to be doing some tours, some rally raids and whatnot, some multiple day stuff, which I'm super excited and can't wait to get on.
There's an important point I want to mention is that there are no official enduro racing events in the UAE, as far as I know.
Red Bull, if you're listening.
Yeah, I mean that's the goal, right? But I would like to start doing some sort of time trial style events, not official races, nothing too serious, but have a pre-set route, and then guys can come out and test themselves against the clock, and just to create a sort of a little bit of a competitive environment, and get people involved and do something fun. So that's our intention in the future is to start creating some events and doing a bit of racing style. And then who knows, maybe in the future we could have a series or an official event and try to attract some more attention to the discipline. And but I mean, it's early days. So
well, there's definitely the potential there for it. Any of these big international brands like Red Bull are listening and maybe been considering this already. It's got the potential. It's only going to grow onwards and upwards from here. And those that you are listening and getting an interest in this, having access to this community is here. If you hear Jarryd's name or Cobi Motorsports, and you land on one of their pages on Instagram or online, and you get talking to him, he'll point you in the direction for the bikes, the setup, the gear, being able to get some training in so you can participate in these rides or competitions when that time comes. Hit him up, see what direction you guys can go in. I want to try and grow the community bigger because it's awesome. It's amazing there out in the mountains. Yeah, even how technical it actually is, it really increases your physical fitness, and it's just nice being out in those free environments. It's like adventure riding. That's a whole nother thing, but you're out there adventuring and being
it's
in
a
the
challenge.
wilderness. Yeah, it's a huge challenge, and mentally and physically strenuous. You've got to be fit. So I'm going to close off the podcast here, and thank you everyone for listening in. Jarryd, thanks for coming on, man. It's been a pleasure having you here on the show.
Thanks for having me. It was it's good to chat bikes.
You're going to come back on, we'll chat more bikes another time?
100%.
Good stuff, that's what I like to hear. So yeah, drop us a comment, DM, let us know if you've got any questions, if you'd like to come on the show, if you'd like to call in one time. We will get more podcasts up and running talking about bike stuff here in the UAE. Lots of topics coming up. One talking about what is safety gear you should wear in a desert environment or a mountain enduro environment. What's too much, what's too little, where's the balance? Riding etiquette is another one that I want to expand on. When you're riding out in the communities, don't spray someone and roost the crap out of them with sand and get sand all down their sweaty body, which is a nightmare to get out later and uncomfortable for riding. All that kind of good stuff. And there's going to be a lot more we're going to touch on as well. So thank you for tuning in. Jarryd, thanks again for coming on, and we'll see you guys in the next show.